Hi, I'm Adam Weiner.
And I'm Catherine Kremer. Today on DWC, we're here at American University's Communications program, where our reporters have the big stories. From the campus, we find out how distorted images the media promotes has driven girls to an unhealthy lifestyle. Eating disorders are an epidemic that have been prevalent for some time. These eating disorders not only eat away at the body physically, but psychologically. But how much responsibility are we willing to take for the consequences young girls face every day? Betsy Thode has the scoop.
Have you ever felt the media pressure you to look like something you're not? Do you feel obligated to lose just 10 more pounds? Over the past few decades, many feel that the increase in eating disordered and obscured body images are the result of the media promoting unhealthy and unnatural bodies. Whether it is Barbies or runway models, the ideal body is portrayed as skinny and unrealistic. In the modern society, beauty has been redefined as anorexic.
Anything that the media does, you kind of have to look at it from both sides, because they're always a dangerous group to work with in some ways, but at the same time, we have to work with them.
According to the South Carolina Department of Health, 50% of girls between the ages 11 and 13 see themselves as overweight. In a recent study by two British universities, girls ages 5 to 8 feel unhappy with their bodies and have viewed Barbie as having the ideal body. However, researchers say that 1 in 100,000 women have a body that resembles Barbie.
The realities are, if you were to make a life-size Barbie, firstly, she wouldn't be able to commensurate, and secondly, she wouldn't be able to stand. Her proportions are so badly out of shape, she would have to sit in a wheelchair the whole time.
Girls idealize a doll with an impossible figure. They feel that by achieving the unrealistic and unproportional body that Barbie has, that they too can achieve the perfect life that she lives. In the same way that Barbie presents distorted body images, models and celebrities send false messages. In TV, shows, and movies, overweight characters are always portrayed as the loser or the bad guy, while skinny, attractive characters are seen as popular and successful. The average female model weighs up to 25% less than the average woman and has a body mass index 15 to 20% less than what is considered healthy. Girls look up to models for the latest fashion trends, and then they see their idealistic bodies as perfect beauty and fashion. Everywhere people look in the media, they are presented with society's idea of the perfect body. Whether a girl's looking through a popular magazine or watching a movie, she may associate female role models and heroes with skinny, unhealthy bodies.
They will often provide a model, particularly for a female, to look at and say, well, this is what I want to look like.
As the growing problem of eating disorders continues, some of the media has started to take some action to make a change.
More information so that people can work with the media, sort of, and make sure that all the fashion houses, different magazines, all those kind of TV stations, know more about eating disorders, know more about the kind of healthy things they should be promoting.
Some modeling agencies now require that their runway models be of a certain weight. New Dove's commercials are also working to raise public awareness by informing society that not everything is what it seems. These commercials show that the way airbrush is used to make someone appear to be more attractive and skinny.
A lot of people talk about the Dove campaign for real beauty, which has been a positive thing in terms of the way they've portrayed women's identities and how they feel about their bodies. There's something I always try to tell people, though, to beware about with that campaign. The Dove is not a standalone company. It's part of Unilever, which is one of the largest cosmetics and pharmaceuticals companies in the world. And they also make Axe deodorants and shower gels, which if you watch their commercials, they usually contain half-naked women running around, rubbing mud all over themselves, that kind of stuff. So you might argue, well, those kind of commercials could have exactly the opposite effect.
Although some action is being taken, the media still continues to promote eating disorders through the constant emphasis on an idealistic, skinny body.
Sex is something that teenagers in relationships are pressured into every day, but the percentage of those that succumb to those pressures may not be ready. Katie McNeilis has more on how sexual pressures affect relationships.
Today's young adults have a lot on their minds. School, social interactions, and constant pressures from the media. One of the biggest issues is sex. Today we sat down with a number of well-informed teens to find out their views about the matter. How old are you?
I am 17 years old.
16.
28 years old.
Well, I just turned 16 years old and I'm going to be a junior in high school.
I'm 18. I'm 15.
I'm 16.
Have you ever felt pressured into having sex?
There's been times where I have felt pressured to have sex or do sexual acts with someone. More often than not, they came from my friends and whatnot.
I have not.
Not really, no.
Well, me personally, no, but a bunch of my friends have always been pressured, and I really don't think it's not really that big of a deal. I think we overcompensate it in our society today.
Probably not, but I think sometimes what you have done is not really what you would have done. I guess so. I got school and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure in today's society.
Who do you feel has the most influence? Your peers, the media? I think probably people around you. They can influence you by saying something, by making you feel different from them.
Oh, yeah, hell yes. I mean, when it comes to sex and when it comes to learning about sex, it's not something you find on your own, but you discuss with others. And friends, yeah, we talk about sex the minute we hear the word. We talk about sex as early as elementary school. And, I'd like to think that as we get older, our views get more mature about sex. Not with my friends.
Probably the media, especially because they have all these interviews with stars about how they have such great sex all the time.
Well, I think we do it to each other. I mean, young people, we do it to each other.
To peers.
Peers. But we don't just, peer pressure doesn't just come from nowhere, right? It originates in media images, in family images. I think a lot of people are under a lot of pressure around their religious beliefs when they're making their sexual choices.
Well, I think definitely peers, because especially in a high school society, we all it's all cliquey and stuff, and everybody wants to fit in. So some people might think about having sex to fit in or stuff like that. But definitely the media too, especially with everybody's so pumped about Britney Spears and stuff like that.
I guess peers, but also the media. When you hear stories like Jamie Lynn Spears and things like that, and our culture is very obsessed with sex.
I'd say peers are the biggest influence on today's youth because that's who you're always with.
Do you feel that it's possible to have a sex-free relationship in our generation? I really don't think so. I think it's something that makes a relationship complicated.
Well, of course I think it's possible. I think it's possible for anyone to actually love someone and to actually love sex.
Sure. I don't know what sex-free means, in that I think we as a culture are really pretty stupid about sex.
I think it's definitely possible. Some people choose not to, but I think it's definitely possible to have a sex-free relationship.
I think it's possible for some people, but overall probably not, because our culture is so obsessed with it, and it's idol in all the movies and everything.
No, I think that there's such pressure on that today that you basically have to have relations like that to keep a healthy relationship.
Sex.
Sex!
Sex.
Go sex!
Sex.
Sex!
Sex.
Sex.
Sex. Thank you, Katie McNeilis. And now we are pressured into our next story. We've been told that nobody's perfect. However, some people have trouble accepting it. Brian Grady takes us into the minds of those who strive to achieve perfection that may not be possible.
Madeline suffers from writer's block. She has insisted on writing the perfect paper, allowing herself nothing less than the best, even on her first draft. If not successful, She labels herself as a failure.
This writer's block is a common result of perfectionism, an unhealthy condition sparked by the insistence on perfection, being the very best, rather than excellence, being the best that you can be at that point in your life. The consequences? The Association of Psychologists of Nova Scotia have confirmed that perfectionism is a key contributor to depression, eating disorders, stress syndromes, obsessive-compulsive disorders, and even suicide. The National Mental Health Center has reported that 10% of college students have been diagnosed with depression. 23% of these students at Canisius College have identified perfectionism as a key source of these problems. How does perfectionism take such a toll on society? The South Indian monkey trap perhaps gives the best explanation.
Many years ago, certain villagers would catch monkeys, and they discovered that if they made just the right sized opening in a hollowed-out coconut and filled the coconut with food that the monkeys like to eat, eventually a monkey would come along, stick his hand into the coconut, and grab some food. Unfortunately for the monkey, and to his surprise, he wouldn't be able to get his fistful of food out of that small opening in the coconut. He would be so focused on that food that he didn't realize he simply needed to let go in order to be free. So he was captured and became the next meal for the villagers.
In the same way as the monkey, a person pursuing absolute perfection cannot let go of his or her perception of the perfect approach to success. In the grasp of perfection, we are inflexible. This inflexibility is not only found in people with depression or OCD. Many healthy people, including myself, have been subject to perfectionist struggles. Every time we don't raise our hand in class when we have an idea to contribute. Every time we don't ask the girl or the guy of our dreams out on a simple date. We decide that if there's any possibility that our imperfections will be revealed to others or to ourselves, we just won't do it at all.
Kevin Berry shares his story.
Kevin?
Hi, how you doing?
A lot of people have been in certain situations where they regret not doing something. They talk themselves out of it. Have you been in a similar situation?
Absolutely. I took a trip with my high school to a high ropes course, and there were 3 courses that we could complete, and I was able to complete the first 2, and they tended to be the easier ones. And then there was the last course, and I kind of talked myself out of doing it because it was the harder of the courses, and it was the biggest climb.
So what are your personal thoughts that talked you out of trying to go for the third?
Oh, the biggest thing that was running through my mind was kind of the humiliation. Like, I mean, I wouldn't really care if it was a struggle to get up there, and it got really hard, but what happens when I'm halfway up and I don't want to come down because that's humiliating, but, I really don't think I can really get to the top because I'm too tired, and your legs are shaking and your fingers are hurting, and stuff like that. And so you're kind of stuck in between these 2 parallels. One you think you can't reach, and one it's almost too easy to go back to, and you don't want to do it.
Why do you regret it? What could have been gained?
I think a lot of stuff that would have been gained would have been personal, and that, I don't think anybody else from that trip remembers the fact that I didn't go up to the, to the 3rd course, but I do. So I think it would have been cool to go up there and knowing that even though I was really scared, and I really didn't want to do it, that, I could have gone up there, I could have done it, I could have completed it.
Even when reaching success was in his favor, Kevin convinced himself that he could not climb the 3rd high rope without making himself look like a fool. He decided that he wouldn't even attempt the challenge. These thoughts are classic symptoms of perfectionism. Like Kevin, we think of the unrealistic, the past, the rejections, the failures, anything that might hinder our perfection. We regret, we get stressed, and we fail to experience. Archaeologist and formulator of the Peter Principle, Lawrence J. Peter, once said, "There are 2 types of failures. Those who thought and never did, and those who did and never thought." We have to experience our mistakes and imperfections, take the meaningful advice and reactions, and address them. Don't stress them. Instead, test your weaknesses, climb those high ropes, ask your crush on a date, write those rough drafts. As a result, we can be our personal best as healthy strivers for excellence.
Well, from my own experience, I know that it really isn't easy being perfect. And now on to our next story. When text messaging became a cultural phenomenon for teenagers, it was merely a quick means of communication. Today, text messaging has not only been a distraction, but also transformed social relationships as we know them. Here's Joshua Einbinder giving us the 411 on this text messaging epidemic.
100 a week. Yeah, I sound like 200 a week.
I do not text.
In 2007 alone, 40% of all cell phone users use text messaging with an average of 180 text messages each month. With such high usage, it is no wonder that texting has become so integrated within teenagers' lives, without a doubt inhibiting their emotional and personal relationships.
When you're face-to-face with someone, you might get nervous or you might not, be able to say what you want to say. So it's just, it takes some pressure off you than from face-to-face conversations.
As texting becomes more and more popular, it also becomes a more and more normal way of communicating. Where just a few years ago, teens would communicate solely over telephone, face-to-face, and in letters and emails, they now use SMS texting as second nature, proof of its status as a life-altering fad.
But when I'm in a social situation with a lot of people in a group and certain people are text messaging, it tends to really bother me when they're looking down at their phone instead of interacting with the other people in the group. So I find it kind of annoying.
Text messaging, also known as short message service, SMS, is a way of communicating through messages 160 characters or fewer via mobile phone.
Actually, I think it's easier to say something face-to-face, but text messaging is easier than calling because there's no awkward pauses or anything.
According to a 2006 study, U.S. subscribers sent almost 65 billion text messages in just 6 months. With that many messages being sent, forming and maintaining relationships becomes all that much easier through the use of this technology. But at what cost?
I think it has kind of taken it off the romantic scale just because they'll be asked out that way or break up that way, or the first time they'll tell someone they love them will be on text messaging. It's just not as sincere.
Makeups, breakups, and first I love yous make their way from cell phone to cell phone, lacking the essential inflection of speech that creates the emotional connection when speaking face to face. With such impersonality, texting increases sincerity within an already insincere generation. Texting is a means of saying those awkward things best left unsaid.
It was late one night, and I was texting to my brother. But I tend to keep like a bunch of text messages in my, inbox and not delete them. And so because I was thinking about the girl, I saw the girl's name, and I guess I hit reply and thought that I was writing to my brother. And I wrote like, oh man, this girl's tripping, and she doesn't know what she wants and all this stuff. And then I press send, and then I get this angry text back from the girl, and I had no idea why. I was like, what is going on here? And then she's like, I'm tripping, and I'm thinking, how did she know that I said tripping? And then she's like, why the heck would you send me that? That was such a passive aggressive, stupid way of saying what you wanted to say to me. And I was like, oh no. And then I called my brother, and I was like, we wouldn't believe what just happened. And he's like, oh, believe me, I've done that before. And he's like, but I'm still going to tease you like crazy. And I was like, oh man.
In talking to a variety of students, we learned text messaging's true effect on relationships.
Thank you, Joshua Einbinder, for that insightful piece. Those are all our stories for today.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Adam Weiner.
And I'm Catherine Kremer, reporting for DWC News.
But the percentage of those who succumb to those pressures may not be... I'm going to do it again. Don't stop it. Sex is something that teenagers and... Just keep it there. I just got to get it. Sex is something teenagers... Right. When text messaging became a cultural phenomenon for teenagers... I just got to practice this part because I keep getting wrong when I keep saying Katie McNeilis.
You're doing fine. Take a breath.
I'm okay.
Take a breath. Relax.
Just say Katie McNeilis.
Katie McNeilis.
That's it.
Relationships affect pressure. Sexuals, how on more has Katie ready be not made pressures those to succumb who those percentage the but every day. Into pressured are relationships in teenagers something is sex.
It's only coming through one side. Yeah,
just reading it backwards. Take 8. Thanks, Betsy. Now into some other news. Sex is something that teenagers in relationships are pressured into every day, but the percentage of those who succumb to those pressures may not be ready. Katie McManus has more on how sexual pressures affect relationships. Well, from my own experience, I know that being perfect really... Well, from my own experience, I know that being... Hold on. No, don't cut it.